Wanted to show you this video. This is Prager University. They're explaining what happened in Ferguson, Missouri 2 years ago. Let's go ahead and watch.
One of the most significant events of this century happened in the early afternoon of August 9, 2014. It took place in Ferguson, Missouri, a city on the outskirts of St. Louis. So embedded in the popular mind is this event that if you just say the name Ferguson, everyone knows what you're talking about: police brutality and racial injustice. President Barack Obama referred to it in a speech before the United Nations in September 2014. I know the world also took notice of the small American city of Ferguson, Missouri, where a young man was killed and a community was divided. So yes, we have our own racial and ethnic tensions. The president understated the case. The shooting in Ferguson led to nights of riots and gave fuel to a new social movement, Black Lives Matter. Given its historical importance, it would be useful then to make sure we have our facts straight. So, here's a quiz to test your knowledge. First question, true or false? A young unarmed black man, Michael Brown, 19, was killed by a white police officer, Darren Wilson. The answer is true. True or false? Wilson stopped Brown for no good reason. False. Wilson, driving a police SUV, had just received a call on his radio that a local convenience store had been robbed. He saw two men walking in the middle of the nearby street who met the description of the store thieves. Wilson drove up to them. When he asked the two men to move to the sidewalk, one of the men, Michael Brown, refused. Officer Wilson then attempted to get out of his car, but Brown blocked the door, punching the officer through the open window. As Brown tried to grab Wilson's gun, a struggle ensued. Wilson managed to fire his gun, wounding Brown in the hand. True or false? Michael Brown's back was turned to Officer Wilson when he was shot and killed. False. After being shot in the hand, Brown ran away from the police car. Wilson got out of the vehicle and pursued him. Brown then suddenly turned and charged Officer Wilson. Here's how one witness whose testimony closely fits the forensic evidence described the scene. Brown ran towards the officer full charge. The officer fired several shots at him, and Mike Brown continuously came forward in the charging motion. And when he stopped, that's when the officer ceased fire. When he charged once more, the officer returned fire with, I would say, 3 to 4 shots. And that's when Mike Brown finally collapsed. The Brown family's own medical expert, respected pathologist Dr. Michael Baden, also conceded this point. The wounds Brown suffered were consistent with Brown charging toward Wilson, not running away. True or false? Before Michael Brown was shot and killed, he raised his hands above his head and shouted, "Hands up, don't shoot." False. Federal investigators from the Department of Justice found no credible evidence that Brown ever raised his hands in a don't shoot gesture or in any way heeded the officer's commands for him to surrender. The federal report concluded that witnesses who originally stated Brown had his hands up in surrender recanted their original accounts, admitting that they did not witness the shooting or parts of it. Investigators also concluded Brown never uttered the now iconic phrase. Again from the report, the media has widely reported that there is witness testimony that Brown said "don't shoot" as he held his hands above his head. In fact, our investigation did not reveal any eyewitness who stated that Brown said "don't shoot." Where did this phrase come from then? The best guess is that it was made up by Brown's companion, Dorian Johnson, immediately after the shooting. Witnesses described him saying, "The police shot my friend and his hands were up." And like a game of telephone, the phrase spread quickly throughout the neighborhood, morphing into "hands up, don't shoot." Picked up and amplified by the media, it then became an anthem for activists. True or false? A local grand jury investigation and a federal investigation both concluded that Officer Wilson was justified in his use of force. True. The local grand jury and the federal investigation, supervised by Attorney General Eric Holder, reached the same conclusion. Officer Wilson did nothing wrong. There was no basis on which to prosecute him. Here's how Heather McDonald of the Manhattan Institute put it in her book, The War on Cops. It was not a question of evidence not supporting high-threshold civil rights charges. It was a question of evidence eviscerating virtually every aspect of the pro-Brown, anti-Wilson narrative. There's another way to put this. The statement that an innocent black man was killed by a racist cop in Ferguson, Missouri, is a lie. Those who say otherwise are either willfully deceiving you for their own purposes or are wholly ignorant of the facts. Now you know. Act accordingly. I'm Larry Elder for Prager University. Thank you for watching this video. To keep PragerU videos free, please consider making a tax-deductible donation.
Okay, so understand, the majority of the time I disagree with Prager University, but this video, I actually think they're right. I've done the research, I've done my homework on it. And Michael Brown had tried to wrestle the gun away from the cop. He charged the cop. That's what all the evidence points to. And understand that these people were rioting in Ferguson without knowing all the facts. Okay. Understanding the way that that makes the entire movement look bad if there's not leaders in Black Lives Matter that are denouncing what happened in Ferguson. Okay. Now the legitimate deaths of people like George Floyd and Eric Gardner and Philando Castile, like, people should be upset about that. But when people are freaking out over what happened to Michael Brown, understand that has the potential to really discredit or to minimize the legitimate cases. What do people expect a cop to do if someone's trying to wrestle their gun away from them, or if someone as large as Michael Brown? I want to say the guy was like 6'5", close to 300 pounds. If someone like that's charging a cop, what do you want the cop to do? I mean, yeah, they can try to tase them or mace them, but the guy had tried to wrestle or he tried to pull the gun away from the cop to begin with. Like, just think about that. The officer did nothing wrong, and basically people were rioting over a justified death. I'll have more videos coming out on history, politics, and psychology. I understand usually I disagree with Prager University, especially when it comes to topics like war and like wealth inequality, but if they come out with a video that seems spot on, I'll give them credit for it.